Hello and welcome to Flicker Effect, episode 255. We're recording this on Sunday, May 27th. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this week is Bobby Jackson.
Hello.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hello, everybody. Howdy, howdy.
What's up, guys? Happy Star Wars weekend.
Oh, I thought you were
going to say Memorial Day. Yeah, so did I.
I thought he was trying to figure out like Memorial Day or Labor Day, and he like had a moment of like brain fart, and I'm like Memorial Day, and I'm like, oh wow, he wasn't going there at all. I'm such a jerk.
I was right there with Michelle. I thought you were thinking the same thing.
Well, the funny thing though about that too, to me, is like a lot of people do that. They'll say Happy Memorial Day, and I'm like, that seems like a weird thing to say,
right?
You know?
Totally.
I mean, it is. We all know why it's Memorial Day,
right.
But on top of that, obviously, most people, it's it's the beginning of summer, kind of.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a happy beginning of summer, almost.
Right. I mean, Memorial Day, in reality, is a somber remembrance of our fallen Americans that have put their necks out and their lives on the line for us and our freedoms. But I think, geez, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just so associated with like kicking off summer. Schools are ending. People are starting to barbecue now, like really barbecue and like jump in the swimming pool, and like people start taking really major vacations. And I think it's just like, yeah, it's the kickoff to summer. Like, it's like, woohoo, we made it. Now it's just going to be hot as balls for 4 months. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's why we're like, Happy Memorial Day. We survived.
Anyway. It is funny because no one ever goes to someone say, and when it comes around and say, there's no phrasing for it. You can't say somber Memorial Day, buddy. Right. there's no wording for actually recognizing Memorial Day. It's just not like done, and you just no one in a sense. Michelle, what she's saying is more right in that you might want to say happy kickoff to summer weekend or something,
right?
But it's wordy, so that goes out the window. So then it just becomes, well, it's Memorial Day weekend. There's plenty of sales at all the stores. And summer is about to start. So happy Memorial Day. Let's do it.
I think overall, most Americans become more patriotic basically from this day forward. We got this going, and then we have the 4th of July right in the middle of summer. And then we've got Labor Day to kind of conclude it all. And so it's like, yeah, I feel like everybody starts, flying their flags out in their front yards and wearing silly things. But, I don't know. It just kind of is the kickoff to summer.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Woohoo!
Yeah. With all that said, Happy Memorial Day.
I'm going to say respectful Memorial Day. See, I can't even say it. Respectful Memorial Day,
it's
everybody.
It's a mouthful, right?
I know it is. It is. I'll work on that.
And we have deep thoughts here on Flicker Effect. We're getting deep into Memorial. Man, we should all be somber.
With that said, have you guys ever had on a Memorial Day been like, okay, I'm gonna watch Saving Private Ryan or something? Because I have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'll usually, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I get into a weird Forrest Gump thing for the summers. Oh yeah, I'll watch Forrest Gump 4 times in the summer.
Oh.
I love Forrest Gump to begin with, but I'll pop that bad boy in. But yeah, I'll watch Saving Private Ryan. I'll watch a lot of really good little war things. Actually, there was a ton of really good war movies on this weekend on TMC. I was texting my dad. I'm like, dude, guess what's on Friday night at 8:00? And he's like, what? I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, I'm listing them off for him because I kept seeing the commercials. And he was like, man, I'm not doing anything this weekend now. I'm like, it's gonna rain all weekend. You might as well watch Turner Classic and watch all these great old war movies, you know. But yeah, no, I'll watch war movies and stuff. And I've definitely.
If I was your dad, Michelle, I would have been like, first off, don't call me dude. And then secondly, I'm doing nothing this weekend. Is no one barbecuing? What's up with that?
Well, here in Florida,
it's just, we already have a tropical. It's like a subtropical storm, which I've never even heard of. I've lived in Florida my whole life. I'm like, what the fuck is a subtropical storm?
It's like underneath a tropical depression. It's not quite as strong as a tropical. Is that what's happening? Anyway, so that's coming up in the Gulf from down south, and so it's basically made our weekend rainy
and gloomy.
And very gloomy. And the sad part is today we didn't get very much rain. Not as much as I thought we were going to, but it's been gloomy as heck out there. It does not make you feel like throwing on your cool patriotic swim shorts and jumping in a swimming pool and having a hot dog. Like,
does it make you feel like it's a respectful Memorial Day weekend?
Well, what I was about to say,
feels more fitting.
It does feel more fitting. Is that I have in the past, done wreaths at military cemeteries, like laid the wreaths out for the summer. So I've done that before for Memorial Day, and I probably need to take it back up and do it again some more. This would have been a great weekend to do it. It'd have been really somber with these dark clouds and putting the wreaths on all the gravestones. Mm-hmm. But well, and then like some places do wreaths, and that's when they got money, and the other ones do flags. Flags are definitely the most common during the summer. Wreaths are more Christmassy, I guess I should say. But it's one thing you could do. So you could always have that moment. And next month I'll be in DC, and I'll definitely be going to like the wall, going to the Vietnam Wall Memorial and the World War II Memorial, which is a beautiful memorial. So yeah. Things to do. Anyways.
So it's Memorial Day weekend. Solo, a Star Wars story dropped this weekend. Got a new Star Wars film. Woo-hoo! And I'm antsy to talk about this. I'm antsy to hear what you guys think. As always, we have not talked about it yet.
I've been dying to know what you think about this. Like,
oh, really?
Oh my gosh. I think it's because like I wouldn't say you were chatty after the film, but pretty quickly out in the parking lot, you were already like, so, what do we do later? You want to do something tomorrow? It was so
about other things.
Was so like you went so into like regular conversation so quickly. I'm like, he's got some thoughts. I can tell. Like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you are either like extremely quiet or you're suddenly just like, so yeah. Tomorrow's Saturday. How about that?
So we see movies together so often now. Yeah. I guess you still don't feel like you've gotten to a point where you can tell by the way I'm acting, like, okay, he liked that or he didn't.
No,
like it.
because and the sad thing is I feel like there's times I'm like, wow, he was so super quiet, or like, oh, like you'll like pick up the pace of the car, and I'm like, oh man, is that a bad thing? Like, is he pissed, or is he stupid excited? And he just wants to go home and read stuff immediately. Like, or watch videos on YouTube or something. So I'm always like, I don't know what's going to happen right now. And then there's times you're like, you'll be so like on another subject so quickly. And I'm like, does this mean he hated it? Or does this mean he likes it so much and he's happy and he's just trying to not like exude the happiness? And he's talking about like going to a beach or something. Like, I'm like, it's weird. So I'm constantly like, no, I've not figured out how to read you after a film.
Okay.
You'd think at this point I would, but I do not. Not at all.
All right. Well, you ready for it then?
Lay it on me. Let's bring it.
I will disappoint you by saying I'm in the middle. I'm okay with this movie. That's kind of where I am.
Really?
I'm okay.
That's why you were so like, so tomorrow, what's going on?
I like the movie. Overall, I think I liked it. Because I've only seen it once, and it's Star Wars. And anyone who knows me, that maybe listens to this podcast a lot, knows that I'm a little bit of a Star Wars fan.
You?
No. So I take a lot of baggage with me into a Star Wars movie. Like I feel like
I always wonder what the suitcases were.
Yeah. I feel like I can't really give you a good, truly good feeling on how I feel about this movie as a Star Wars film, and how definitely I can't tell you how it really fits in for me, like in a ranking with the other Star Wars films until I see it like three more times. Oh,
I will agree with that. Like, I know how I feel about this film, but I couldn't rank it right now. Still, I need to see it like at least 2 more times before I could start sliding it in somewhere.
Right. So I would say right now, I enjoyed the movie. I think it's a good movie. And also for anyone who hasn't listened to the show a lot, maybe this is the first episode you're listening to, you may not know that, I was never a fan of this idea of making this movie. I thought this was a bad idea. I had no desire to see a young Han Solo. I definitely had no desire to see someone else be Han Solo. I just thought it was a bad idea. And with that said, I was starting to get excited before the movie came out. I definitely was hopeful. Of course I want this movie to be good. I did not go into it going, yep, this is going to be terrible, guys. Like, I'm going to,
I don't know who would want to see a bad Star Wars movie if you're a Star Wars fan. Right. That just would not make any kind of sense to me. How are you a fan of that thing if you are going into it arms folded saying I want this to suck, or just, kind of taking that defeatist attitude?
I was just about to say, so I think Bobby was kind of with you. Like, I think initially he was kind of like, I don't know if we really need this film, but at the same time, it's Star Wars, so I'm down. Right. But I don't feel that we need to have this. And I think he was right in the same ball. I think we all kind of were. I think we all kind of were in that mindset.
I think so.
I think maybe I jumped on board a little earlier than you guys did, but
maybe, yeah.
I would say all of us were kind of like, do we need this? Hell no.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was just never a fan of the idea. We got a trailer. I remember the first trailer was during the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl? Or the Oscars?
Was it? I don't even remember when they had that. It was during some
television event. I think it might have been the Super Bowl. Anyway, and I was impressed. I was like, okay, cool. We didn't really get any
Super Bowl.
We didn't really get any dialogue from Alden Ehrenreich yet. It was like, but it looked good. And but I don't know. So I started to get more excited, but I think this movie's fine. I liked it, but my big takeaway is that he's not Han Solo. Like, he's just not. And I'm not saying he's bad. There's times I think I was doing a good job in my head of imprinting Harrison Ford on the screen as I was watching it, even though he wasn't there. So I think my brain was doing some of the work of, I'm watching a Han Solo movie with a young Harrison Ford in it, and I'm kind of making him be Han Solo. Is this making any sense to anyone?
No, it is. Like, you can imprint, a New Hope kind of image.
It's almost like I think you do when you read a book. Like, if you read a Star Wars book with a young Han Solo in it, and you're imagining, like, this is what he would sound like. I'm almost was like doing that in the movie with him, because I'm sorry, I just did not get that reaction. The opposite of that would be the first scene with Lando. The first words that come out of his mouth, I'm like, holy shit, that sounds like Billy D. Williams. I'm like,
that's true.
I don't know if you saw my reaction. I reacted with a whoa, like that guy is Lando, and he nailed Lando to me.
He did.
And
Donald Glover.
No, he totally did.
Fantastic as Lando, and I had been hearing that before seeing the movie, because critics and everyone else got in that industry got a chance to see it a couple weeks ago. Right. So that was the main thing that you would hear a lot of, is Donald Glover as Lando is just pitch perfect. And yeah, they weren't kidding. I mean, you watch the movie and you see Donald Glover's performance, and there's some times within it where it really, if you closed your eyes, you would think it was definitely a young Billy D. Williams speaking as Lando, because it just sounded right. But it wasn't like he was all the time specifically trying to sound like Billy D. Williams as Lando. It just came off that way sometimes, and then other times it was just still that Lando character, but in a different sort of sense. So he just really, I think, got it. Whereas I think, to me, Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, he got there for me. He really did. By the end of the movie, he had earned my stamp of approval for the role, because it did take me some time to adjust to it. But once I did, I think the way the story was written and the things that they had Han Solo doing, it really started to make it feel like he was that character for me. And he didn't seem like he was the character in the same way that Harrison Ford is that character, but it definitely felt like it was a younger version of that character, and still rough around the edges, but in a way that was more, I guess, optimistic and a little bit more shiny before he becomes more of the scoundrel and more jaded in the way that we kind of are first introduced to him in A New Hope.
I'm with you, Bobby. Like, I will say, initially, as the movie first started, and Alden's doing his thing, I was kind of like, I don't know. He seems almost too excited, almost like too plucky, like. And then as the film went on, I really started getting into it. And then I really kind of thought about it. And I mean, this could have been intentional. I have no idea what his method is, but like when I think about it, I'm like, as Han Solo as a character, we saw him when he was a youth. So he'd had some hard knocks, but still he was very like, the world is an okay place and we're going to make it, can do kind of attitude. And even through the course of this storyline, you know, he gets a lot of more hard knocks and he learns a lot of hard lessons the hard way. And so he starts to get a little rougher and a little like edgier. And it's like it's a slow burn progression throughout the film. And I think it's, you know, there's still more, I'll say adventures, you know, there's still more smuggler bounty things that he's going to go do with Chewie, and more storylines that are going to happen where he's going to be hanging by his ankles and almost die and get into bad situations. And it's going to build him as the person that we see come New Hope. So he's going to get a little harder and a little rougher and a little edgier as he continues to age, which is what I feel like they were going for as a whole in the film. But so I'll say by the end of the performance, I was down with Alden, but I will say at the beginning it was kind of hard. And even not even like the young scenes, but like the later scenes, it was kind of like still just a little too happy. It was almost like Alden was just so stupid excited still to be doing the role itself that he had a hard time holding back his own actual exuberance at the situation. But overall, I think by the end of it, I was like, I'm good. We're good. Things are great. You're just a really young Solo that still has to go through shit, and you're eventually going to get to where Harrison was in New Hope. And that's cool with me. But Lando,
so did you,
Lando, God,
so
awesome. So good.
So Michelle, did you like the movie?
I did. I definitely could tell I liked it more than David did. Like I had a fun time in this film. Like I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I thought the comedy was pretty right there for me. Like I didn't think it was overreaching at times. I didn't think it was under par. Like I feel like it was pretty spot on. I thought the action was awesome. Like when they would have actions, like the whole train scene, freaking awesome. That was baller. Like it just, the film works for me. I don't think it's an amazing film. There are issues. I will say the beginning felt slow, and I feel like it took a while, but once the second act came along, I was in, dude. I was like, yep, I'm good with this. So once it got its footing, I think it really takes off from there. And I think it's just a fun story. I really liked this one in a way that is just different from some of the other ones. Like I don't want to say this is shallow, but it just isn't quite like as deep reaching as say Rogue One is. Rogue One is a very emotional film, and it's very about convictions and you know, it gets really deep into human stuff. And this is a fun adventure, and I'm saying that, and your lives are on the line the entire time. But I liked it. It was a good time for me, and I'm still going to need to see it. I would say at least 2 more times before I can actually put it in a ranking of my Star Wars films. But I'm down with this. I think it worked.
Yeah, I see. My thing is definitely where David said in the beginning, where it was like, we weren't asking for this film. When they first announced it, it was just like, come on, really? And it just made no sense to just kind of tell this backstory of this character. So I had that mindset for quite some time. But then going into it, I was, as David was, getting excited for the idea of this movie. And I feel like, okay, now that I'm kind of adjusted to the fact that you're giving me this movie, so if you're going to give me this movie, then you better pretty much give me Solo's greatest hits. Because if I come out of it and don't see that, then I'm going to be like, well, why didn't they show this? We know this about the character. Why didn't they show that? So I thought what they did a good job of is kind of in a way that worked for me, a way of showing those greatest hits without overly explaining other aspects of his life. I didn't want to go into the movie and see Han Solo at 10 years old or anything like that.
Right.
No, it's Alden from the start and it's Alden to the finish. And so there's that aspect of it that I really felt like they gave me and the audience some of the highlights of some of the things you know about this character, and did it in a way that maybe you weren't expecting. And I thought that worked out really well. And I've had a chance to see it twice. And I actually came out of the movie feeling the same way both times. And for me, I absolutely loved seeing this movie. It really worked for me on a level of adventure and fun. That was what I was kind of, I guess, hoping for from this movie. And like you said, Michelle, with the heist in the beginning of the train, that was awesome that you see in the trailer. And the way it plays out is really, really cool. And then there's just some other things that happen later on that just play out really well also. Yeah. And so there's just this sense that you get of this movie of the possibilities and where it could go. And you're just in awe of how they were able to put this thing all together, especially considering all the problems that they had behind the scenes, and having Ron Howard come on to do, as they've said, maybe 70% of this film after Lord and Miller had started off and were pulled from the project. So, I mean, all of that is such an accomplishment for it to come off and me still feel like, wow, I actually ended up loving this movie and that I wasn't expecting. And whereas you and David mentioned that you don't really feel like you have a ranking for it, I feel like after I came out of it, and I wasn't sort of doing this purposefully, but almost immediately I had it in my head of like, where does this fit for me? And literally within about 2 minutes in my head of going through it all, I was like, man, I think this might be top 5 of all Star Wars movies for me. So yeah, I really did love it that much. But I just think there's a lot of things that really, really worked for it that could have went really, really wrong. And there's obviously some things that I don't think worked that well, but for the most part, just that sense of adventure and fun is really what resonated to me and made me really, really, really love this movie.
I gotta tell you, I tip my hat to Ron Howard. I think he really did a great job with this. I think this is a film that he can look back on and smile and be like, damn, that was a fun one. You know what I mean? Like, he could literally sit in his office and be like, that one was fun. No matter what anybody says about it, he'd be like, yeah, kiss my ass. I had a good time on this. Like, and I think he deserves that pat on his own back. I think I just wanted to say one of the things I think really worked for me was the look of this film. Like the sets and just the coloring that they used and just the way the finishes were in certain shots. Like, I'm on IMDb right now and they're going through photos and I'm like, God damn, they're so good. Like, there's just like, I'm seeing these stills go by and I'm like, God, that was framed so well. Man, those are good color schemes. The sets were so good. And I was just like, it really pulls the story and it pulls you into the story itself. And it was like a whole nother character and I loved it. And this movie is 2 thumbs up. I'm good with this one. It was a fun time.
The cinematographer, Bradford Young, who shot stuff like Arrival, Selma.
Which I love Arrival.
Yeah, it's just the way certain things are framed and just this overall look and feel. It had that sensibility to me of what Rogue One had, but then it still had its own sense of styling to it that I really just appreciated. And that along with the score, everything, I really enjoyed the score actually.
David is gonna argue this one.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was not a fan of the score.
Oh man,
it was a huge negative for me actually, because I felt like it was too derivative of past Star Wars themes.
I think that's what I liked about it.
That's what I was just about to say.
There you go. I guess that's where the difference lies.
And I mean, that's just personal preference, I guess.
I think that's a personal preference.
But to me, it's like you're telling a different Star Wars story, and obviously it's going to be a Star Wars movie, and it needs to sound like Star Wars. But at the same time, you're just, we're going to have a scene in what's basically an asteroid scene, right, with the Falcon. So let's use the same theme from that in Empire. And I'm like, really, like. Stuff like that just really like that it bothered me, and I don't know, it just felt way too derivative of other Star Wars films, as stupid as that may sound, because it's like, it's a Star Wars movie, it should be, but I don't know, like there were definitely new themes in this, but I don't know, maybe after hearing it again I can pick some of those out, but right now I couldn't. Like, all I remember is just the stuff that I'm like, you pulled this from this movie and you pulled that theme from this film, and I don't know. I think that's me.
I can see where that would go wrong for you, but I think as I'm watching the movie and listening, watching this character that is so familiar but different, and because he's younger, I like the fact that the music reflected that it was something that was familiar, but it still had its own flourishes of its own thing, and so it just all kind of worked to me in conjunction with each other. So I technically, and you guys know when we're watching movies, I don't typically notice score that much, and for it to stand out to me, obviously, I think it's because of how familiar it is and how much those sounds and some of that music resonates from past movies. I think that's why I guess it worked for me on that level, because I wasn't expecting or looking for some sort of original score for Solo to have his own theme, or I don't even know honestly if Chewbacca has his own theme or not, but it just all felt very familiar in a way that was like covering yourself up in a nice warm blanket. As you it just felt good.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, I felt like it was like kind of coming back to home a little bit. So it was familiar and cozy, but still different enough that I could go, this is cool. It's still also kind of new too. So, but like, I don't know. Speaking of like new and cozy, the Millennium Falcon, like, seeing the inside of it, it's all just brand new and shiny. Oh, I was eating it up. I was like, it's so cool to see it like this, and then to see it later, and like to watch it develop as the film goes. I'm like, this is kind of cool to watch this. It was like the Millennium Falcon had its own like story almost in a way, and I thought that was kind of cool. But I will say one of my disappointments, and I shouldn't say disappointments, it was kind of like I liked a lot that happened and getting a little bit, but my disappointment is I wanted a little bit more was actually with Chewie. Like, I liked kind of seeing how he and Han met and how that went down. But then as the movie goes on, I'm like, I feel like they keep pulling away from Chewie now. And I was like, I kind of want more Chewie, which is funny because I've never been a huge Chewbacca person. Like, I've kind of been indifferent with him. No hatred, no love. Like, just kind of like, whatever, Chewie's Chewie. But with this one, I was kind of like, I kind of wanted more Chewie.
I'd agree with that. I am a big Chewie fan, but I also agree with what you said, that I wouldn't have minded some more Chewie.
Like more story almost a little bit. Like a hint more. I agree. Just a hint more. I think Chewie story interjected somewhere would have been kind of cool, but we got what we got, and I'm okay with that. But it could have been. I would have been okay with a smidge more.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm chomping at the bit to really get into some of the details of this. So, like, whenever you guys are ready, let's.
Well, Michelle's giving me a look like it's going to be okay or something. Like
you look so sad. Like, they really liked it, and I'm so indifferent to it.
No, I mean, it's not like I go into something like this hoping you guys. Man, I hope they felt bored, or not bored, but kind of okay with it too. Like, hey, you guys loved it. That's great.
No, I know that. I just feel bad. I feel like you're telling, I'm a man on his own island today.
That's just my gut reaction to this movie. Seeing it was, it was fun, but could I say I walked out of it disappointed? I'm like, yes and no. In a lot of ways, I went into this, as I said, originally thinking it was a terrible idea. So I guess in a way, I'm not disappointed, but of course I am, because I want it to be a good Star Wars movie.
Right.
And again, it is good. It's just, I don't know. I just don't think it's that good. And going back to the Alden Ehrenreich thing, I think he's fine. It's just a gut feeling. Like, it's not Han to me. Like, it's just not. And I feel like we've heard so much about how great apparently this script from Jonathan and Lawrence Kasdan was going to be, right? Like, it was just this great script. And that was the one bit of news that was really giving me hope. I'm like, apparently this script is fantastic. So fine, this is going to be great, right? And to me, I watch this and I'm like, no. It's fine, but not at the level that we were hearing buzz about, that it was this amazing Star Wars script. I'm like, no, it's not. And I feel like on the page, this probably seems great because on the page and you're just reading it, that's Solo in this film. But then when you shoot it and now we see what we got, that's not, to me, really Solo in this movie.
Gotcha.
Like if you could have somehow done some magic and created a young Harrison Ford and had him actually be Solo in this, like this could have been the same exact film, and I think that's what would have taken it over. For me, that would have made it amazing, just because you enjoy watching Solo. Like, you enjoy seeing that character. We all love Han Solo from the original trilogy and from Force Awakens, but to me, that's not what I got here. I got a fun story, and it's got a guy in it with Chewie, and of course, that's Chewie, and it was Lando, but it just wasn't Solo for me. And then that's... He's good. He's got moments where I'm like, I could see it more than others, but I don't know. That was my gut reaction to the one time I've seen the movie.
Right.
Maybe I'll see it a couple more times and feel a lot differently. Yeah. We all know I've seen Last Jedi 3 times, and I kind of had 3 kind of different reactions to it. Yeah. And I've settled on I don't like that movie.
But, and Thor Ragnarok, you saw that a couple times, had different reactions.
Yeah,
You're warming to Ragnarok, smidgen. Like, I think incrementally.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I mean, Ragnarok, I still think there's things I wish were different about it, but now I accept it for what it is and I enjoy it.
Right.
And
maybe you'll get that with Solo at some point. You'll be like, I accept that this is Alden doing Han. It just is what it is. And you can just enjoy the rest of it for the rest of it. Because I will say, if we talk spoilers, like, there's other characters that I want to be like, dude, like, that was... awesome.
And I think it's okay for me to say this without talking. I'm not going to reveal any spoilers, but another thing that maybe kind of bums me out about it is that I personally don't have any hope that we're going to see any more of this. Like, I don't really think, especially when you look at the box office numbers, that we really have a hope of seeing like any more Solo films.
Right,
and
more Solo.
This movie definitely ends in a way that feels like there needs to be more.
I think they were just leaving themselves open for the possibility.
And of course, this is Star Wars. Like, there could be more in the form of books. There could be more in the form of comic books, like in animation. Like, this is not just about the films.
Totally.
And, maybe there's that. But,
there's no doubt that the movie should have probably done better this weekend once we get to talking about that. But I feel also maybe there could be other contributing factors. I feel like we're going to need maybe a little distance from it to really know and understand exactly what's going on with this particular movie. Is it that will the feedback after this weekend and another weekend be that audiences typically enjoyed the movie, or will it be they didn't really enjoy it? Or because that, I think, will ultimately maybe decide the fate of whether or not we get another one of these. It's not necessarily the numbers, it's how the people who did see it responded to it. Because I feel like the numbers, it could be something weird, not weird, but it could be something going on there with the fact that we've had so many blockbusters week after week for this last month, and in the time frame that this is still the second weekend for Deadpool, how many people might be going to go see that as opposed to now I'll go see Han Solo or Solo next weekend, since I didn't get to see Deadpool first weekend, so I'm seeing that this weekend. And then just obviously the amount of people that may be vacationing, and generally speaking, Memorial Day weekend movie should do good, and it didn't top necessarily the Pirates of the Caribbean number for opening in a Memorial Day weekend. But would this movie, if all things are equal, would this movie have done better if they put it in December like the other Star Wars movies have been? That's what I kind of feel like is what we're talking about if we're starting looking at the numbers aspect, because of where it's come out and what we've had before it, and the way that the time slotting of this movie happened. Are those contributing factors, or is it really legitimately that people just didn't want to go see it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, as it always is. But yeah, I would say I think it's a lot of what you're saying, that it's in a time where we're already in Blockbuster Land.
Yep.
And right now everyone is in comic book Blockbuster Land. And I think this would have been better served to be in December when, you're getting a lot of great films in December, and you start to get some blockbusters, of course. But I feel like tentpole blockbusters like this are a little there's just not as many in December, you know,
Right.
and I felt like it had been better served there. Plus, just the
agree.
distance away from Last Jedi. Like, we only had Last Jedi, not only.
I think some people are still holding
months
a
ago,
sour
or-
taste in their mouth from
Could
Last
be.
Jedi, and
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's also there's people that didn't see Deadpool last weekend, and I think they're seeing it this weekend. So I think there's just so many combinations of everything that's happening with it right now with the numbers.
Yeah, and I don't know, and maybe some word of mouth is coming into play too. Maybe people are, because, you know, you look at Rotten Tomatoes score, it's at like 70%, which is not, it's fresh, technically.
Right.
It's not a bad score, but it's not amazing. And I think a lot of people maybe were already kind of skeptical about this, and then they're like, I'm not hearing amazing things. Like,
Well, and I'll say, like, I'm looking at the screen, and it's 70% on that, and
the critic
it's
score.
60% on the
audience score.
on the audience score. And that to me reads a lot about what I'm seeing online. I think a lot of people are kind of mixed. I think it's very diverse, like how we are, Bobby and I think fall into more of a, we're really happy with this, and you're okay with it, but you need to see it again. And I think that's what I'm reading, is there's a lot of mixture of opinions on this film, and, you know, kind of where it is in their hearts with the Star Wars story as an expanse as a whole. So, but I think overall, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. I think it's going to take some word of mouth. But I think overall, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah. But now we're looking at a good year and a half until our next Star Wars
They could have
film.
waited to December.
And I think episode 9 will be very well served by a very nice long gap.
Yeah, I
Since
agree.
Everyone's going to be like, okay, we got 2 Star Wars films really close to each other. We're ready now. Can we have the next one, please? Like, yeah, that movie will do quite well. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I think about the box office. And
So what was the final? What's the estimated number as of right now, Sunday evening?
the 3-day weekend estimate right now is at 83 million.
So now, is that 3-day Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
No,
or is that
that's
Friday, Saturday,
Friday,
Sunday?
Saturday, Sunday.
So is there a 4-day forecast since it's Memorial Day?
Yeah, normally.
Last I saw it was like 101, 102 maybe.
Okay.
But kind of looking at it as a 3-day weekend, which most films, you're looking at a 3-day weekend. Yeah, it's sitting at 83 right now is the estimate.
Yeah, and Deadpool's still holding pretty okay.
It is, though. I mean, for a drop, it had a damn decent drop at 66%.
Yeah.
That's a
But
decent
then-
romp.
But it's only
then-
its second weekend, and it's going up against a Star Wars movie. I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
No, exactly.
It's all, I think they all kind of crushed in on each other, and that's unfortunate.
Right.
Maybe they will not be doing that next time around. They'll probably start to distance these things a little bit more.
Right.
I agree.
And yeah, you think like how long Black Panther held on and how little it dropped every weekend. But you look at when it released and what it competed
Right.
against for weeks, which was almost nothing, you know? And you imagine if you had swapped it and had Avengers Infinity War come out back when Black Panther came out, like the kind of money that would have made would have been probably the same, if not more. Like,
Yeah.
you know? But-
There's a lot that goes into timing, for sure.
But because of when Infinity War came out, it had Deadpool 2, 2 weekends later, and now
Right.
Star Wars. And
Right.
And it's Star Wars not even 2 weeks later. It's
Right. Like it's.
the next week.
right, exactly.
So it's not even had a 2-week buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right.
Disney getting greedy.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about any spoilers, so let's talk.
I have something kind of funny. So this is what I was talking about.
A little warning for anyone, listening. We're going to talk about spoilers for Solo. So
Okay, we're in spoilers.
we're
Spoilers.
in spoilers.
Okay, so this isn't spoilery, really, honestly. But okay. So did you guys see the article that Nerdist News put out that was titled, and I kid you not, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. L337 is the most woke android in all of Star Wars Anthology.
You really got to kick it.
It's hilarious because it's true. That android, and to quote what Nerdist said, literally is the most woke android. And the thing is prior to that, I would have argued that the android, that now I can't think of it, that was in Rogue One would have been. But this chick topped it, and it was so good.
So you were a fan of L337?
I was a fan of L3. I liked her. I thought she was fun and spunky and sassy. And they even like made the android so that like her hips were higher and wider, so she was walking like she had a booty.
It did seem like that. I was like, that's an interesting choice for her to move in the way that she does. Like, she's kind of like a thick woman in a way.
Yes, exactly. She moves exactly like a thick woman. I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. And how she's just like, revolt. Like, you could tell she's a votes for women kind of android. I loved it, dude. I thought it was so good. And she was there. It was, and the whole thing with Lando, oh my God. Like, I was dying. I loved it. So happy.
I did like the one line she had too, because I mostly liked her. I guess there was a little bit about her that I would have pulled back on, but mostly I did like her. And that there was this line that she had when they're at the Kessel, and she takes the restraining bolt off of one of the droids, and the droid asks her something, and she's like, I don't know, just go free some of your other people. Like, it's like, free some of your brothers and sisters. And then the other line that she had that I got quite a little laugh after was when Lando said something to her in the cockpit of the Falcon, and he said something like, well, what do you want, or something, and she said, I don't know, equal rights. And I had to laugh. It was pretty good.
So good.
I'm getting a kick out of Michelle.
It's so good. I think she's a really good character. I think she's a really great android. And I'm not a major android fan when it comes to Star Wars. I get annoyed by them, honestly. So for me to be this excited is kind of saying something. But like, it's cool to watch her and her character, and to then realize that she basically becomes a major part of the Millennium Falcon is just such a great way to wrap up her character. And to have that character basically continue like through time now, like, it's awesome. So, and
see, then I fall into the camp of, like, I agree with you, Bobby. Like, there's definitely moments, specifically the ones you pointed out, that I thought were really funny. But overall, I'm honestly not a fan of L337. I'm not. Like, to me, it's, especially coming off Rogue One, where I loved K2SO.
I loved K2, though. I do.
It feels like, it almost feels too soon to do that kind of shtick again, is what I feel like it is. Like, it just feels like another K2SO, but a little different, obviously. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. Overall, definitely great moments. I'm not saying I hate on L337, like, but overall, like, I think kind of like what you're saying, Bobby, there's some stuff you would have pulled back on, and it's just the character in general that I'm like, I don't know if I really needed another android with this kind of personality that we just got in another Star Wars movie just a year ago or whatever. Like,
right. Well,
I don't know. That was my kind of reaction to that character.
I will say I did have the chance to listen to the audio book for the Han Solo tie-in movie. It was called Last Shot. Yeah. And L3 does play a part in the novel as well, because they flash back to a time that was about 15 years prior to, I want to say, prior to A New Hope. And so you see more of L3 and how she interacts with Lando. And she very much is how she's portrayed in the movie. She's all about droid equal rights and trying to push that agenda. And Lando is mostly at times very much, kind of exacerbated by the whole concept and conversation that she constantly wants to have with him about trying to free droids. But at times it can be a little bit endearing when they do have those conversations, because it does mean a lot to her. And I do think that is an interesting take to go with that world in Star Wars, because you never see that before. That hasn't really been done or touched upon, of droids having this sentience about them, but never really sort of having any thought about having their own sort of realized freedom. And it's actually done a little bit in the Rebels TV series that was on.
Okay.
But in general, you don't see that much in the movies.
Yeah, it's almost reminiscent of like Hermione with like house elves. Like, there's a little side battle that's kind of happening, that's going on. But the only thing that I think and this is coming from a chick who, really hasn't watched the extra shows or read any of the books or the novel, anything else. The downside to this, though, is that kind of the fight per se for, you know, for the freedom of the droids or free thought or whatever, you know, having them not feel like they're enslaved. The downside is basically from this point on in the storyline, it's kind of dies down.
Yeah.
So it's like they brought it up, which is cool and kind of interesting, but it's obviously, we all know where the story goes. From what we've seen in the films, at least, it kind of dies down.
Not like it's an ongoing theme, you're saying.
Right. That's what it's, yeah. So, which is, it's fine. It's
and then,
cool.
I think my other takeaway about that character, you know, like having not read that book, for instance, like you're saying, Bobby,
Right.
like, you know, we're talking about spoilers now, like the scene with Lando and L337 and this droid dying, like, I don't know, it didn't work for me because I'm watching it going, and this is going to sound terrible, but in a way I'm half watching it going, this almost feels like a joke. Like I don't have this connection of their relationship that so far in this movie that he cares that much about this droid. So when this droid is dying and he's being so emotional about it, it feels like,
I don't know.
It didn't feel real to me. And like, had there been a lot more backstory, maybe if I'd read the book you're talking about, Bobby, and some other stuff, that would have worked for me better. But in the context of this movie, I wasn't really sold on that. And it felt like it was kind of like, whoa, I wouldn't have expected Lando to react this way.
Downside is it totally worked for me because I feel like watching the two of them have their little like back and forth, their little like snips at each other and stuff was very playful and fun and flirty. And, you know, he rolls his eyes at certain things, but at the same time, like, he has a major affection for her, not just because she has the best map of the galaxy in her brain, but I think he likes that she's an independent thinker. I think he likes that she's sassy about these things, you know? Like,
I agree. I think he does,
and
too.
so I think he does have a good connection with her because, like, there was a few comments that you can tell. Like, he'd roll his eyes, but he'd smile about it. Like, it was very, like, oh, she's so exacerbating. But you could tell he's like, I kind of like it. Like, it's that, you know, like, you don't want to admit that chick is annoying, but you love that she's annoying because she hits on all the right nerves. The wrong nerves in the right way.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of their relationship. So when she's dying, he's like, oh my God, like, this is a friend that I've had that I've counted on. I think it was just kind of like that. Like, she even, you know, she's even talking to Kira and she's just like, he wants me. I know it. The thing. Like, you know, they have, I don't know. You know what it reminds me of? This is what it reminds me of. It reminds me of like work spouses.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So I'd go with that.
Gotcha.
And since we're on the subject of droids, did you guys notice that this is the first Star Wars movie without R2-D2 and C-3PO?
Yeah, I noticed. I didn't really. C-3PO was kind of here and there with me, but R2 was kind of like, oh man, it's the first no R2. And I'm not even a major R2 person.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it, but yeah.
I picked up on the R2 part. This 3PO didn't really fuck me.
Right.
I really don't give him a second. I know.
Man.
I'm like I said, I don't hate on the droids, but I've also just never really given them a lot of thought. And R2, and I know everybody loves R2. Like, R2 is everybody's droid. I'm kind of like, nah, whatevs. And like, I think BB-8's adorable, but I'm also still kind of like, nah, it's cool. Like I said, literally until Rogue One was I like, oh my God, this droid is awesome. Like, I've never had any, like, I don't know. Anyways.
That's interesting.
I know. I'm a snob. Shocking.
So yeah, this big reveal in this film. It's funny. I'm gonna bring this up because I don't know. As I'm watching this movie, I didn't know anything going into it. I hadn't read any spoilers yet. Luckily, I'd avoided it.
I think it's a good thing.
But it's just, and you're going to hear this thought that I had in my head during the movie and go, that's ridiculous. And trust me, I was thinking it and going, oh, that's ridiculous. But I'm watching the movie and it, for whatever random fucking reason, it popped into my head that if Darth Maul had popped up into this film? Like, and the thought I had was like, for whatever reason, when we're watching it, and because I had this sense, I'm like, oh, there's going to be some reveal in this movie. Somebody's going to be something or whatever, and we don't know. And one thought that had popped in my head, I'm like, how weird would it be if that character, and I'm going to butcher their name, Enfys Nest, had taken the helmet off and it was like Darth Maul.
That would have been, my head would have exploded.
And that it just
that
was it was just this random fleeting thought that popped through my head at one point during the movie. And I think like, you know, any of us do, especially when you're trying to just enjoy it for what it is, but at the same time you can't help but have random thoughts pop into your head of like, oh, well, what if this ends up being this or that ends up being that? And that was just a random thought. Of course that wasn't the case. But then at the end of the movie, Darth Maul pops up and I'm like, that's kind of crazy.
Right.
Because it just completely randomness. Because I was aware. I am one that has not watched all of Clone Wars. I haven't watched all of Rebels. I've seen some of both of them. But I'm aware because I read a lot of stuff that, yeah, Darth Maul, for those who don't know, survived the end of Phantom Menace.
Which I didn't know.
You didn't know that.
I had no idea. And so now I'm watching this scene, and one, it was like, I will say, I was trying not to predict how we would go, but at the same time, like, stories all kind of have a certain, like, ebb and flow to them. So there was a part of me that's, like, just waiting for Kira. And I'm like, okay. And then that moment comes, and I'm like, who is she going to talk to? Who is she going to talk to? And then just before, I was like, didn't I? And again, I don't know when or where. I didn't seek it out, but I'm like, didn't I hear Ray Park was going to be in this? And then I was like, fuck me, is it going to be Darth Maul? And then I'm sitting there in my head, who, not knowing Darth Maul lived, is like, well, now how the hell does this work? And my head is just, you've seen the meme where there's like math equations floating around your head. Literally, me in the theater, I'm like, wait a second, hold on, what? And so yeah, it's Darth Maul, and I'm like, okay, what's happening right now? And I was kind of like, I'm a little confused. I hate to admit this, is I'm nerdy enough, I think, but I was like, I'm super confused.
Your reaction to it is the thing that, and hear me out, Bobby, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Because you read a lot, Bobby.
Because I know you watch everything, and I've read more than I have. It's your reaction is the one thing about this as a tie-in to other canon material that I find an interesting choice. Because even though, yes, having read some stuff now since I've seen the movie to fill me in on some of the stuff I haven't seen, I get why this makes complete sense.
Okay.
But it's an interesting choice for me, coming from Lucasfilm and Disney to do something like this, because it's funny, like there's been some complaints, I think me and Bobby included, we've talked about this probably off air, how there's not enough connection to some of the other canon material in these films.
And that's what you think it was.
And, you read these books and you think, oh man, there's stuff in these books that's going to tie into this. Or you watch these shows and then it feels like they make these movies like, Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and there's not really a lot that's tying in, and you're like, why the fuck am I reading these books?
Right. Why do I even
other than the fact that some of the books are enjoyable to read on their own, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then in a way it's like, wow, that's awesome, they're making a connection to
finally
other
doing
stuff. Like, that's really cool. But of all the things you could have done, I find this very interesting because it's I haven't talked to a lot of other people than you, Michelle, but I'm very curious how people react to it, in that I think most general audiences who have not watched Clone Wars and watched Star Wars Rebels or read, the Darth Maul comic books, they are not going to know like that he survived. And then I think a lot of, hear me out, people that just aren't even that well connected to where these movies fit in terms of timeline, they're going to see that and go, so wait, is this pre-Phantom Menace? Or I think it's just going to confuse people, because they're just not going to get it. And of all the connections you could have made, I'm like, it seems like an interesting choice, but okay. I mean, in a lot of ways I applaud it. And then in other ways I'm like, I feel like you're just going to really confuse a lot of people with this. Right.
Like, I feel like you've really locked in the fanboys,
Absolutely. And
which is awesome. But then I'm like, I've not read any of the Star Wars stuff. So like, again, and I'm like, I just sat there kind of going, okay. And I'm telling you, I was just like, I'm a little confused. I'm trying to put this timeline and this doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like trying to just calculate things in my head of like, well, what's happening? And then David told me, he was like, oh yeah, Darth Maul survived that. I'm like, wait, what the what? I'm like, he survived? You mean what? He did no. Like, I was like, but he in half and he fell and the thing and the what? No, no. Yeah. So yeah, Darth Maul survived apparently.
So Bobby, I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Well, I feel like a couple things are things that could happen, a combination of two things that might happen because of this. And on one side, it will be people who have the reaction that Michelle had, and then that will maybe lead them down the path of going back and trying to watch this Rebels show and this, Clone Wars show and get them more interested in some of the other canon material. Or they will find someone that they know that nerds out about this stuff and knows all this stuff, and then ask them what's the deal.
Right.
And so then they'll kind of get the cliff notes of basically why Maul is around. And, to be nerdy for a second, it is actually Maul because of the...
It is not Darth anymore, yes.
Yeah, the rule of two says you can't have more than two Darths. So you got your... And so,
Maul,
yes, so he's just Maul. But so I think it'll be a combination of those things happening, depending on where you, how much you feel like you want to go back and get all this other information. If you don't have the time, you'll probably just get the cliff notes. If you're a little bit more interested and to see how some of this stuff plays out, maybe you'll go back and watch the series, or just at least at the very basic, just watch those episodes that he was a part of. And I think for my take on it, I was completely surprised. I didn't know anything going into it. I didn't read about Ray Park or anything, so I had no idea. And it's actually Sam Witwer that does the voice for Maul, who actually does the voice for him in the TV series.
Right.
So,
okay.
So yeah, so I was completely caught off guard. In fact, my idea, in the way that David mentioned how you have these random thoughts that pop into your head, my thought was that we're going to see Jabba in some sense. And so as being the person that was in control of all these people and doing all this stuff. So I was completely caught off guard when they actually did the reveal and showed that it was Darth Maul. And I might add, one thing that I find funny in the way that they still seem to keep certain things is that even though we didn't get an R2 and a C-3PO in this movie, we still got a lightsaber. So there still hasn't been a Star Wars movie without a lightsaber in it.
Right.
So I thought that was funny. But yeah, it caught me off guard, and I was completely down for it just because I do know that Maul is around at that time. I just wouldn't have never guessed that they would use him. And it's in a way, if they do get the ability and chance to make a sequel to this movie, they're going to have to tread very lightly, because there's no way that Han Solo should ever be able to come in contact with Darth Maul, because when we see Han Solo, he doesn't believe in the Force and all this other stuff. So he should never really see what Maul is up to in terms of Yeah. So
yeah, that's very true. But yeah, that's one of those things that about this movie that it's like, yeah, if we don't get anything else in terms of the films, it feels like such a wasted surprise, like to reveal Maul in this and then never get to see him in another film again.
I will say though, and you're right, I would love to see how this plays out more in a sequel. But based on the world that we live in, I feel like there'll be either a comic or an audio or a book that will play into what that sequel could have been, and so that we can get this story played out more and fleshed out more one way or another. So it sucks for people who only watch the movies, but it's good for me because I soak up all the other stuff as well. And so I do think that they will not just leave us hanging in that sense.
Yeah, and I would say with almost like 99% certainty that's the case. It's more like the film aspect, like feels like you really were setting this up for another film.
For sure.
But then like you're saying, yeah, like if you make another film, how do you do that in such a way that Han doesn't come in contact with him, but it's still like a Han Solo film with Maul in it? But,
yeah,
and then that makes sense to the whole, like him not really believing in the Force. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that part of it before. So I don't know.
So one thing I definitely have to talk about was one of my favorite scenes in this movie actually ends up being one of my favorite scenes in all Star Wars movies. And I would have never expected going into a Solo movie, coming out of it saying, that scene, it feels like it's going to be one of my best favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. Obviously, there's iconic scenes in the original trilogy, and there's things that happen in the prequels that are cool. But the scene that I'm talking about is when Han is on the battlefield with Beckett and his crew. And I really felt like I was seeing an actual war going on. It felt like they were, literally were in the trenches, and it was like so much stuff going on, chaos and everything, people dying, and they're just like in the midst of this huge battle, and where they're doing what the Empire does, is trying to take over a world, and there you see that battle playing out, and I really wanted them to spend a few more minutes to see how they won that battle, because it just felt so realistic in the way that you think a war would go in this world and in this universe, and it looked so cinematically important and done in a way that felt gritty and realized that I hadn't seen, other than some parts of Rogue One that was like that. But in this, it really felt like they were boots on the ground and just in the dogfight and trying to fight this war where many of them didn't necessarily even know what they were doing. They're just following orders.
Yeah, no, I got that sense from it too. Like that scene again felt like a Rogue One or a Battlefront scene, that was like, oh, this is cool to see more of the actual war aspect of Star Wars in a scene like this. And that plays into, you guys commented earlier, I didn't really say anything about the cinematography in this. I completely agree. Like, the cinematography of the film is amazing. It looks amazing. Like,
it does.
Definitely not one of the things I dislike.
Like the sets, everything, all of it.
And that too, that's part of it. Like that war scene that you're talking about, Bobby, like just, it all looks so incredibly good. That's why the trailers looked so good, because all the shots in the trailers, I'm like, oh shit. And still that shot of, them in the Kessel Run and then coming up on that Star Destroyer, like you saw that quick shot in the trailer and it was still like, oh God, this just looks amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
It's so good.
I was just going to say, one of the things that Star Wars continues to do well, and I applaud them for continuing down this path, is making their, to a certain extent, I should say, they make the women in their film very capable. Mm-hmm. Kira absolutely felt like someone that could hold her own, and is a woman that you can almost see why maybe Han has a type, because she is his equal in every sense of the word. Mm-hmm. And in fact, she ends up even saving him in the end when they're fighting against, who was it? Dryden.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
that was a baller scene, dude.
This is honestly the first, it was. And this is honestly the first time I think I've seen Emilia Clarke outside of Game of Thrones and really liked something that she was doing with the character she was portraying. So I would love to see more. In fact, I did download that other audiobook that I think was supposed to be released right around this time with her and Han when they're younger. I forget the name of that one, but I'm looking forward to listening to that and getting more of her character, because I really liked her character in this.
That reminds me that this is another movie that, I don't know how to put this, but you see trailers for films, and I find that most of the times, you'll see trailers that, a lot of times we all complain that trailers show too much, but you can see, a menagerie of scenes that are coming from that movie, but then you still watch the movie, and it's not like, for the most part, the trailer like ruins anything for you. But then as I'm watching this movie, for whatever reason, there was like at least 2, if not more, moments where I felt like, because of the trailer, we get to a set piece and I'd be like, well, I know what's about to happen.
Yep. Yeah.
And meeting Kira on that ship was one of them. Like, as soon as he's walking around and I'm like, oh, this is where he's going to run into her again.
Right. You know what? That pissed me off a little bit in the theater too, because I'm sitting around, I'm like, oh, God damn it, this is where he's going to see her again.
Yeah.
And it was just so like, that stupid trailer. Goddamn trailer.
And then
did
same
it.
thing with once they do the Kessel Run, and then they get to whatever that planet is where they're the refinery for that material. Same thing. They get there. I see the look of it, and I'm like, yep, they're gonna run into the Marauders or whatever they are here.
Yep.
Because of that shot of them all standing there, and Han with the pistol, and
they're all in a standoff.
And I'm like, God damn it. There's those two moments, and then there might have been another one where I was like, because I remember those moments in the trailer. As soon as you got to this scene, I was like, yep, this is what we're about to run into from that trailer.
Trailers.
You know, and a lot of times I don't have that problem. Like, you just kind of don't think about it anymore in the movie. But for whatever reason in this movie, that stuff.
I mean, it was like the moment that they walked onto Dryden's ship, excuse me. They walk on a Dryden ship, and they go into that room. I was like, God damn it, you know it's coming. And he's like, don't talk to anybody. Keep your head down. I'm like, well, obviously he's going to run into her now.
He's going to run into her. Like, you're just waiting for it.
Like, I literally was just waiting for it. I was like, there it is. There she is. But
I guess I wasn't paying attention in the trailer because that actually did surprise me. I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't realize she was going to run into it.
She has the whole thing where she's like, "You look good," you know, a little rougher, but you look good, kind of comment.
That's right. But I didn't put it together as I was watching it. But the one that I did obviously foresee and was expecting was, like David said, when they're on the planet on after Kessel, and then when they run into Impus Nest on that planet, and that he had his pistol that shot, because I knew I hadn't seen it yet, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is probably where that happens. But I guess I didn't read too much into the fact that that's where it was placed at. But yeah, I can see how that would be kind of like you know, you've gotten it a little bit, which is another reason why I typically would just watch first trailers and not anything.
Well, shit, like during the the trailers for Solo, they play the new Rogue One trailer, which I hadn't seen yet. Michelle, you haven't seen yet. And we talked
the Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation. Oh, sorry. The new Mission Impossible Fallout trailer.
Fallout. There it is.
Please, excuse me. Anyway.
Mission Impossible Fallout. Trailer.
So yeah,
which we have not seen.
New trailer is coming out. Like, and as soon as it starts, Michelle and I look at each other like, oh fuck! Like, we've been thinking we're gonna just go ahead and avoid this because the first Fallout trailer is so fucking amazing in my opinion that I'm like, I need nothing more. And yeah, we definitely did just kind of like hit our eyes and kind of talked at each other.
We did the whole like
2.5 minutes.
Like the whole like ear muffs and like like making like blah 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 blah, like trying to not like hear what the dialogue is, and we're both not looking at it. And I'm like, because I was like, I didn't want to see this trailer because the first one was amazeballs, and two, I don't need to see more. I go to a Mission Impossible film to be surprised off my ass. That's the point. So yeah, no. To get back, it was a downer that there were some things that we totally caught in the Solo trailer that popped up.
But when I went off on that tangent, Michelle, it sounded like you were about to say something.
I was just gonna say, like, and I'm totally changing gears here, but I feel like, so, you know, I've given my respect to now my brain just died.
Alden Ehrenreich?
Not Alden. Glover being Lando.
Oh, Donald Glover.
Yeah. So, but I gotta say, the new guy doing Chewie, I think he's got it down. He's got the walk down, and
definitely.
He's got the mannerisms. He's got the eye contact in the right way. It works. And Woody Harrelson as Beckett, I really enjoyed a lot. Like, he was exactly the right kind of rough and the right kind of like good guy, yet still a bad guy, but a good bad guy.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
It worked well. Like,
I think
it came across, you like him just enough, knowing he's gonna screw you in the end.
Yeah.
But you just let it go because it was nice. It was good. I liked Beckett. I liked the character, and I liked Woody.
Because there was a part of me going into this, and it's like, okay, Woody Harrelson's in a Star Wars movie. Am I going to be able to get out of that? This is Woody Harrelson. Like, he's just one of those actors that he's just so Woody Harrelson that, you know, and he is in this, but it works, and I didn't have a problem with it.
No,
like,
it works.
I was fine with it. I mean, I didn't think he was like amazing or anything, but
I'm not saying I think he was amazing. I think him and that character, I think, worked in this film, and I think it was just the right levels of everything. I think it just kind of hit the right way.
Right.
I do like the fact that, and I agree with what both of you guys are saying about Woody Harrelson's portrayal as Beckett. But one thing that I felt like I did know coming out of the trailer and was expecting to see, and sure enough, it happens in the movie, is that Beckett was going to turn on Han Solo. And it was like, okay, I see that coming. But what I do like that they did do there was that Han even knew that he might betray him. So he had a contingency for that as well. So that I didn't see coming, and I thought they played that well. But yeah, it totally was telegraphed that Beckett would kind of be the one to turn on him.
I think it was interesting, and this goes hand in hand with Beckett, but it was like it kind of kept coming up a few times, but it was the whole like, who shot first? Well, Han shot first. Yeah. And I feel like that came up 2 times in this film, and obviously that scene with Beckett at the end, it's like, yep, Han shot first. Like, obviously. Yeah. Like it was just. And I feel like that kind of kept happening a little bit. And I like that. I like that because that is a character. That is part of what makes Han up. Right. So, yeah.
And speaking of new characters, one of the characters that I did like that was new was the character that Jon Favreau played, Rio. Rio
was good.
I liked him. He was like interesting look to him as a character design, and he just had this sort of natural likability about him, and the way that Jon Favreau voiced him, I thought really worked well. And I totally wasn't expecting him to die, in the first half of the movie.
It was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it definitely worked for me as a new character, though. And I know, David. So okay, your whole thing is with Alden and how he maybe necessarily didn't feel like Han. There was, to me, 2 times that I specifically said that's Han Solo if there ever was a Han Solo. And one time was the first time, I think it was when they were in the Millennium Falcon, and Han is piloting at that time, and they see the Star Destroyer, and Han's like, don't worry about it. They're not going to send any TIE fighters out against a ship like this. Next thing you know, there's like all these fighters
6 TIE fighters pour out the bottom.
And I was like, that's sure enough like something that would happen to Han. And so
a Han situation.
Yeah, that made me laugh. And then the other time was when they were on the planet, and he was like, I just need to snap my fingers and like 30 fighters will come out, guns blazing. And then next thing you know, you see the Millennium Falcon taking off. I was like, yep, that's it.
Like as soon as he said that, and the shot widens to the Falcon, I'm like, the Falcon's totally taking off on Han and fucking him over. And it was like, yep, there it goes. It was good. It was good. That was good.
All right, so I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to put you guys on the spot. And I'll play along. I'll do this as well. Bobby, I want you to rank your 10 Star Wars films.
Oh, God.
You too, Michelle. You're doing this.
But he already kind of said this is going to be 5.
Well, no, he said it was in his top 5.
So I used to have this written down.
We're not going to include the Clone Wars film. So 10 films.
We're not including
the animated film.
Okay. I was like...
I think it got a theatrical release, so some would argue, well, we're doing live action here.
Fanboys.
So it's going to be easier for me because I've never really sat down and thought about my order.
I know I'm going to have to do it from top down. I can't do it from bottom up.
Yeah, so no way.
Top down, you mean like 1 to 10, or you mean 10 to 1?
And you say it in whatever order you want. I'm just saying, for me to do it off the top of my head, I will have to start with my favorite and go down.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was going to say, top of my head, it's almost favorite down. Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 1 is Empire Strikes Back. Number 2 would have to be A New Hope. Number 3 would then be Jedi. Number 4, I feel like that for me is probably A Force Awakens. Number 5, I feel like this is going to be Solo. Number 6 is Rogue One. Number 7 is probably going to be I would say oh shoot, I can't even think of the actual name of the title. Episode 3 though.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. There you go. Thank you. Number 8 would probably be the Last Jedi. Number 9 being Episode 2, and then 10 being Phantom Menace.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard for me because I feel like I think I've said this before on here. Have I? I don't know if we've done this before.
I don't think we've done this. I mean, we've done a lot of podcasts.
And the thing is I feel like
no, we haven't.
Okay, the thing is I feel like I've probably said it to people, but and I'm sure the order has slightly changed here and there, so I don't want to be like. People be like, oh, but you said that one. I don't know. But I will say my first one has always been my first one.
I feel like it's an ever-flowing, evolving thing.
Right.
I'll say something after you do yours, Michelle, and you ask me next week, and it could be different. But right now, what I'll say is what I say. But go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, number one, and then moving to backwards. So I would say, and I will say it's always my number one, is Empire Strikes Back. Number two, and people always appall, but I will say is Return of the Jedi. 3 is Where Life Gets Hard. I would have to say Force Awakens. 4, New Hope. 5, Rogue One. Shoot, I'm not gonna lie to you. 6, Solo. It's in there. It's up. It's doing well. 7, Last Jedi. I would say 8. Where am I now? We'll go with Phantom Menace, and then 9, Attack of the Clones, and then last but not least, Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith is your least favorite?
Interesting.
That's interesting.
You're also asking me, and I literally could not tell you the last time I watched Revenge of the Sith. And I don't know. And and seeing this is what I'm saying. Like, I can sit here and think about it, and I can go, no, you know what? I think I did like it more.
I know I'm putting you on a spot.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I did like it more than Phantom Menace. So yeah, maybe it's that, then Phantom Menace, and then Clone Wars. I don't know. And see, in those 3 movies, I feel like it's like there's parts of each movie that I enjoy and parts of each movies that I hate, which, like everybody.
Right.
So it's hard for me to put the small portions of what I love in an order, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, well, which one has more things I love about it? I guess I don't know.
And then what, Bobby? You put Revenge of the Sith above Last Jedi, didn't you?
Yes, he did.
Man.
Yeah.
See, my problem is like, I like the story of Revenge of the Sith. I hated watching the way they did it. It was painful. Yeah. And it was just bad acting. It was just bad, like, dialogue. Like, that whole third act just made me cringe. And while if you look at it as a story, the way it's going, I like the story. I just hated the way they did it. It was just painful for me to watch that. I was just like, why are we here? Did you people get paid? Kill me now.
Yeah, I don't know. When it comes to the prequels, before I go on my list, I will say, I think Revenge of the Sith is the best of the 3.
Really?
With that said, I don't think any of them are very good.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Revenge of the Sith included. But there's aspects to the first 2 acts of Revenge of the Sith, especially with Palpatine and Anakin, these scenes that they have where he's trying to turn him, that work for me.
Well, see, and I'm nerdy, and there's scenes that I love in the Senate that they do in Attack of the Clones.
Oh.
Like, there's like the whole like political aspects of it, and the whole like stuff in the Senate that kind of goes down. I actually enjoy that kind of stuff. I will say the rest of the movie, a lot of the whole back and other stuff I don't care for at all, but kind of like the nuts and bolts of the behind the scenes of what the fuck is happening and making this whole thing go through, that is intriguing to me, and that I found interesting. Anyways.
Well, yeah, and I'll say I'm doing this off the top of my head, and I think we've all probably thought about these kind of lists in our heads here and there. So, of course, I think maybe I've thought about a Star Wars list in my head, but I've never actually written one down. So this is just purely off the top of my head. But, and you might be surprised, Michelle, but like you mentioned Solo at 6, and you like, oh, like that's high. Like, first of all, we're only talking about 10 movies, and I think Solo is going to fall in the exact same spot for me.
Like, I enjoyed it. I really did.
But yeah, so in the Empire Strikes Back would be number 1. Number 2 is tough for me, but I guess I'd probably go with The New Hope, which is just, it's the original. I love it. I was
gonna say that's what most people's number 2.
So then I'm still tough on 3, because part of me is like, I'm gonna probably say Return of the Jedi, but Force Awakens is right there. I really loved Force Awakens a lot. So yeah, I guess I would say Return of the Jedi is 3, Force Awakens is 4, Rogue One is 5, Solo is 6. For me, Last Jedi is 7. As much as I didn't like it after my most recent viewing,
I need to watch.
For as much as I'm not happy with that movie, I still think it is a overall better experience, a better movie than any of those prequel films. So that's where it sits for me. And then yeah, Revenge of the Sith would be then what, 9? Wait, 7. Sorry, 8. Revenge of the Sith would be 8. Phantom Menace would be 9, and I think Attack of the Clones for me is the bottom of the barrel. I think I'd put Attack of the Clones 10.
Yeah, it's hard with those 3. Like
because to me, at least Phantom Menace, you've got Darth Maul and Phantom Menace, and you've got that great choreography and fight scene at the end of the film.
Yes, that's what holds that movie together right there. Is literally,
And I mean, I think the pod race is relatively entertaining. Like, I think it's a well done little scene,
It is.
It's well done, but it's one I usually will check out of either mentally or like literally I'll just fast forward past just because.
Well, yeah, especially when you consider that overall it has no bearing in a way of like.
It really has none.
In terms of Star Wars. Really. It's just like a scene to have, as a sound guy, the mixing and sound editing of that scene, you sit in a good surround set in your house, the pod race sounds great.
That's amazing in my house.
It's so, and you're right. Like I could see a world where, because it's kind of nebulous and it could change, where I could switch my Phantom Menace and my Attack of the Clones for each other. But I think maybe the thing that it comes down to me why at least right now, why the Phantom Menace sits at number 10 for me is because if you take out that Darth Maul aspect, that rest of that movie is just, I just have a hard time with so much of it. And I think where Attack of the Clones trumps that for me is seeing Yoda fight. I don't know. I love Yoda.
Oh yeah, against Grievous.
And so I just love seeing Yoda be a badass. And
even though it was all CGI, it was still pretty baller. See, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like there's little aspects of each of them. But I will say, overall, yeah, I have to agree. I think Phantom Menace is actually my last one because
I don't begrudge anybody saying that. Trust me. I as I've said, I don't like any of the prequels.
As Bobby said, you literally take out Darth Maul. You take him out of that film. I really don't like anything else about that film. But Darth Maul, anything with Darth Maul in it was great. Like, literally anything surrounding him and his storyline in that film, awesome. But if I take that away, the rest of that film, I really could give 2 craps about.
Yeah, and then for me, I think Attack of the Clones doesn't have much of anything that works for me. Even the Yoda fight scene, I'm not really a fan of. And then the thing that really pulls it down for me is that Hayden Christensen is so incredibly terrible in it, and the love, the romance between him and Padme is just awful. It's awful.
It's not believable.
Right? It's not even close
it's
to believable.
It's horrifically bad. But see, what stands out for me though, like I said, is the whole stuff with the Senate, everything that goes on kind of behind the scenes. I think it really sucks me in every time. And then I also really enjoy just the whole idea behind the clones themselves. Like, I like it when Obi-Wan is there and he's learning about the clones and he's seeing them in action.
And you meet Jango Fett for the first time.
Fett for the first time.
Boba Fett.
And Boba, that is all interesting to me. And then the clones come out at the end and the droids come out and start fighting. That, like, it's interesting to watch the tide turn, and it's all because of things that happen in the Senate, and then Grievous is there. Like, there's all these little things that in that film I enjoy. If you take out the whole, Padme and Anakin love story. If I pull all that out of that film, the rest of that film I actually enjoy.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Like I enjoy the rest of that film. So yeah. Anyhow, so those are our lists, huh?
Yeah.
God, we're nerds.
That's my list right now. Ask me, like I said, next week it might change a little bit. Though I don't know if it really would. I mean, like I said, I think my toughest spots are actually the 2, 3, 4 spots. 1 is solid. Like Empire's 1, but 2, 3, and 4, yeah, I like where I put them. I like New Hope at 2, Return of the Jedi at 3, Force Awakens at 4, but they could almost be kind of interchangeable.
Yeah,
like,
2 and 3, because it's New Hope and Return of the Jedi. Those two, it's like my mood of the day, basically. Like, how am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm a New Hope kind of feeling moment. So it's a number 2. And other times I'm like, nope, it's Return of the Jedi, number 2. Like, I don't know. It just depends on my mood, I guess. Honestly, with those two, I'm with you. Like, I think. And
yeah, I know. Like some people, Return of the Jedi has its detractors and. You know, people that hate the Ewoks, but I don't know. I guess at the age I was at when that movie came out, what year did that come out?
89?
Oh no, it was before that.
5?
It's like 84.
84.
Okay.
But I was pretty young. I thoroughly enjoyed that film.
Young. I loved it. I
loved the Ewoks as a kid, and I've grown up being completely fine with Ewoks. I have no problem with them. But I know there's a lot of people that I think were a little older when that movie came out and were not fans of that whole aspect of it.
Right.
And I think for those people, Return of the Jedi tends to sit lower on this.
Like I mean, I don't love the Ewoks, but I think because I was just so stupid young, like me and the Ewoks were good. I think my problem with that film is the very end when Vader's helmet comes off. It makes me go, that's what you came up with? Like, and I remember thinking that when I was younger, and I remember thinking that even to today, I kind of go, so that's what you went with, huh? With effects and makeup and everything, you went with that look, huh? Really?
Really?
That's always been the thing that always gets me in that film. Every single time. I'm like, really?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone make that comment on that.
Really?
Like, no.
That's always been my
I've
thing.
never had a problem with that.
That is my hang up every time is when Vader's mask comes off. I go, that's what you all did? Okay.
I mean, of course, my big complaint would be in the new era of Return of the Jedi is, replacing Anakin or Hayden at the end. It's just sacrilege. But
there are people rolling over in graves right now because of that.
It's the one reason why you hear a lot of speculation about Episode 9, and people speculate, like, what Force ghosts are we going to see? And, of course, the Luke Force ghost speculation, right? Like, that seems like an obvious choice, but you hear a lot of other ones, and I've heard the Anakin thing thrown around, and to me, I don't think Disney Lucasfilm will ever touch that because it's a conundrum for them. Like, in a way, if you do it, which do you... I don't think they'll ever go down that road purely because of what Lucas did when he redid that shot. If he hadn't have redone it, maybe you could have had a Force ghost. And you could have found an actor that looked very similar to the way the older Anakin looked, and because to me that makes sense. But I don't think they're ever going to get a Hayden Christensen Force ghost, and I don't see that ever happening.
If they do it, I'll be indifferent towards it, whatever, because it's whatever at this point to me. But when I think about it, I feel like they've messed it up in the first place, just because if I start to get nerdy and geek out about Star Wars stuff, why would Vader even be able to have a Force ghost in the first place? When did he study the art of being able to turn himself into a Force ghost? It's not something everyone knows how to do. And it's just, but I mean...
I guess there's a couple of arguments, but yeah, honestly, it's hard for me. So yeah, it bothered me that they put him in the redo. It bothers me a lot. But yeah, I don't think they're even going to touch on it. Like, let's just not even go there. But I will say, yeah, like Luke, I could see Luke. I feel like that's a pretty good.
I feel like that's a foregone
feel like you're the odds are in my favor here.
Yeah.
Before we go or move past Solo, I did want to take a minute to highlight a couple of things that I didn't like about the movie.
Oh yeah,
that absolutely didn't work. First one, and the biggest offender to me is I really don't like that Solo got his name because of a person that was an Imperial that didn't like the fact that he didn't give him a last name. He just named him Solo. And then it goes back to what Bob Iger said when he kind of really did spoil the fact that when he said
we learned how he got his name.
Yeah, you're going to learn how Solo got his name, or how he got his name.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I guess we really did learn that something we didn't need an explanation for it, not just have it be his last name. It actually had to be given to him. So that one was like, that bothered me.
That kind of hurt a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, and then I feel like some people were like trying to go, oh, well, he probably didn't mean it like that. He probably meant it just in general, like not literally how he got his name. And I don't know, my reaction was always like, I know, I have a feeling he's being literal.
And I was hoping he wasn't.
My take was that it was going to be something along the lines of like toward the end of the film, you get this sense that he's really the kind of guy that he's on his own. He doesn't really like
belong to anything.
He doesn't belong to anybody other than his friendship with Chewie, but he's really a loner, and he's not going to take part in any rebellion. And then somebody would probably make some comment about like, I really always all along assumed that, oh yeah, he's Han, but he's not Solo yet. I did not expect it to be like it did play out in this movie.
That was a little sad.
And it honestly didn't bother me. I was kind of like, okay, whatever. But I didn't expect it to play out like that. I thought it was gonna be like later in the film. I figured like the whole movie he was just gonna be Han and
then eventually it'd be Solo,
like right at the end or something.
That would have been cool. On the flip side, I will say the whole Lando calling him Han the entire time, brilliant.
Oh
yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, love that.
Sorry.
Love that.
Anywho,
so the other thing that it kind of rubbed me the wrong way was when we had the Enfys Nest reveal. I didn't mind that it was this girl behind the mask. And some of the scenes, especially when she was on the train, was so badass.
So huge.
That when Beckett took a shot at her and she ducks it and she's running towards him, that was all like so well done. And the character, it's herself, she was really badass. What I didn't like is actually the literal reveal. She takes the helmet off, and the camera just pauses on her for the longest beat, as if I'm like looking around. I'm thinking to myself, am I supposed to know who she is?
Exactly.
Does one of these characters know who she is? Because they're pausing for a very long time.
I was like, so is she Beckett's long-lost daughter or something? We're going to find out? Like, what the fuck? Why is the screenshot on her forever? Like, I was waiting for some reaction from, like, Beckett to be like, it's you this whole time? And I'm like, what's happening right now? And all I kept thinking was, this has got to be canon stuff I don't know about, clearly.
That's exactly what my thought was, because I haven't read and watched as much other canon material, was that it was some connection to something I hadn't seen.
Right. I was like, this is obviously stuff I have no clue about. I was
like, is she like a character from Rebels or something that I is like, that's why we're sitting on her right now, like in this shot? But yeah, same reaction.
I was so confused. I was like, does she mean something to somebody else that I don't understand right now because I haven't read stuff? Right. I don't really know what to do.
And I guess the last thing, and I still don't know if I count this as a negative. I really don't know how I feel about it. It's interesting at the very least, is that sort of in that same scene where Han gets his last name, his Solo name, there's a commercial for join the Imperial, join the Empire.
The music.
And it's the Imperial March.
It's the March, yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? Wait. That music is actually like, they know that music?
That's their propaganda music?
Yeah. I was like, I literally couldn't reconcile how I felt about it. It felt very meta, but very weird at the same time.
It is. It's very meta.
The music that plays during their commercial, but yet it's something we've known because it's just score. And so it felt very weird, and I still don't know where I sit with it.
Yeah, it's the same reaction again, like when it happened. And it was like, it was kind of it wasn't just like a literal representation of the music we know. It was kind of like an arrangement of it or something. Yeah. But
it was like in a different key. It was weird.
It was the theme, and I'm hearing it and I'm like, in the matter of a few milliseconds in my head as I'm watching this movie and then trying to just enjoy the movie, I'm thinking, wow, I don't know what I think of that. Like you're taking something that's just like score for film, but now you're saying that this theme is literally the theme of the Empire, like in this world. And yeah, I'm with you. I guess I haven't thought about it much since the movie. So yeah, I don't know where I stand on that one. That's a tough one. I feel like that's a really big, bold choice to make.
It really
is.
is.
As stupid as that sounds to some people, like
no, it's big.
That's a big thing. You're taking that theme and now making it canon in this universe, like
that. It's the Empire's propaganda music for their existence.
Yeah, I feel like, even though I still don't know where I stand on it, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I feel like it's an unnecessary move. You could have come up with something that kind of maybe sounded even similar. Yeah. Just something, not ominous, but yeah, I don't know.
So here's what's funny about that. Cause obviously, like they have the whole like propaganda, join the Empire, see the world. Or see the galaxy, yada yada yada. So, and the music comes on, and I had the whole thought of like, this is super meta. Their propaganda music is for this, and at the same time, I was like, I don't hate this. And here's my theory on this, because I've thought about it a little bit, and I haven't really thought about it while we were watching the rest of the film, but it came back to me like the other day. I think it's because, and I could be wrong, but I think this is just me as a person, my own personal things. I watched the first 3 films and I was such a little girl. Like I was a little kid when I saw these films. Like
oh, I thought you meant like you were super excited and happy. You act like a little girl. And
here's the thing. So because I saw these films when I was a little kid, I think I just assumed that music was always the stormtroopers. Like I just associated that music all the time, and it just is part and parcel with it. So it all just kind of made sense in my head on some weird level. So to hear it uses the propaganda music, I'm like, that totally makes sense to me. Like, why wouldn't it? It's almost like in my head, I think like North Korea has its own theme song. So whenever I see shit on TV, I'm like, yeah, there's their theme song. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's just kind of like, it just makes sense to me. So like I'm not hating on it. I'm okay with it in like every way. I don't think it was really necessary per se, but I'm okay with it because I'm like, yeah, no, it makes sense. That's the Empire. Like that's their theme song. There it is.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, Bobby. I forgot about that.
David's trying to wrap around this whole North Korea thing.
That's funny.
His head's exploding.
Yeah. I'm not saying I hate on it either.
Right.
Like, I'm with you, Bobby. I kind of don't know where I stand on that. Like, it is, I guess it is what it is now.
I'm good with it. It's cool.
It's
like,
canon.
It makes sense. It makes sense to me. Like, I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, I guess. Funny. It was weird though when it happened. Yeah, I mean,
there was definitely.
Whoa, is that?
Like
am I hearing that right?
In milliseconds, as you're watching the film, a lot of thoughts go through your head really, really quickly, and then you're like, "Oh, back to the movie, back to the movie, back to the movie." Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, I feel like there's probably other little things I wanted to bring up, and I'm not thinking of after another viewing. Maybe come back to them.
We gotta see it somewhere.
Yeah, I gotta see it again. And again, maybe it sounds like I'm hating on the movie. I like the movie.
I mean, based on where you ranked it at, it sounds like you liked it.
I did. And it's so far in terms of the Star Wars story films, I personally definitely think Rogue One is a better movie. I enjoy Rogue One a lot. I know not everyone does, but I do. I would watch it before I watch Solo.
You know, it's funny. I think Rogue One and Solo for me are going to be very like interchangeable in their spots. Do you know what I mean? Like, It's going to be another thing for me. What mood am I in that day? Am I in the like, yeah, let's go on an adventure? It's going to be like, yep, Solo's ahead of it. And then other times I'm going to be like all like, you know, emo and like dark and deep and thought and like how stories go and be like, no, man, Rogue One.
I could see that.
Totally Rogue One. I think those two films are going to flip flop a lot for me in their spots.
Right.
And that's fine because that's the way New Hope and Return of the Jedi are. I think those two go back and forth, and I think these two are going to go back and forth for me, and I'm fine with that.
My thing is with these films, as we get more of them, and we'll touch on it really quick, but I would personally like to see more movies like Rogue One, like these kind of random stories set in this universe that, yeah, they tie in somehow to the bigger story, but it's about maybe people we haven't met before. Like that, I think, is what I want. And the idea of doing more of these movies like Solo, where, we're going to get backstory, on a character we already know.
So like you would have liked something about like the Marauders that turned out to be.
Yeah. Maybe something more just about like these crime syndicates and stuff, that, yeah, ties in obviously with Darth Maul and whatever, and not have Solo involved in it, like in some way. Like I think that would have been a more interesting story.
I would agree.
And then, yeah, with the announcement of, okay, it looks, I still don't know if Lucasfilm has officially said this, but it seems,
they haven't.
Okay, yeah, it seems like it's out there now, though, that like James Mangold is most likely going to direct a Boba Fett film, which we've been hearing about for a long time. Trank was going to direct the Boba Fett film before, right? And, I'm not saying I wouldn't see a Boba Fett movie. Sure. It could be cool. I'm very curious to see more with Mandalorians in it. I think that'll be very interesting. But overall, do I want a Boba Fett movie? Like, I'd rather have some other little random story about some people I've never met. Like, that's kind of what I would like to see.
Right. So what are your thoughts on like Obi-Wan and everything?
And then there's the exception. I do want to see an Obi-Wan film. I think, having already had Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan for 3 films, I think it would be really cool to see a movie that even more so bridges that gap between that Obi-Wan and the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan.
Okay.
And to see a Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan where he looks even older, and you kind of see that transition to how we know him in A New Hope, and see some other, adventure he has or something that I am very interested in. Because if there's anything I did like about the prequels, it was Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he was baller.
So that, as I have just said, I don't want those kind of movies. Yes, the Obi-Wan is the exception. I will be all for an Obi-Wan film, and I fear that even though we keep getting teased with it, you keep getting these news bits come out there. Some major news sources like, yep, it looks like it's gonna get announced. Like, still hasn't been announced.
Right.
And then now, even though it hasn't been officially announced, it seems like Boba Fett's getting even closer to happening. You
know what? Honestly, if they make a Boba Fett movie before they make an Obi-Wan movie, and let's say they don't make this Obi-Wan, I'm okay if they made this Boba Fett movie before they made an Obi-Wan movie, if they announced that an Obi-Wan movie is going to be made and it gets made.
Oh, you're ready to throw papers in the air, aren't you?
If they do a Boba Fett movie and they don't announce an Obi-Wan movie, I won't go watch a Boba Fett movie.
Bobby is ready to throw papers in the air, shove computers off desks. He's fucking over it.
Because it's like, I feel like Obi-Wan has had more to do in these movies than I feel like than Boba Fett had to do. So I really would like to see some more of Obi-Wan than I would Boba Fett. I mean, yeah, they can make a good, interesting Boba Fett movie, sure, but I feel like when you're giving credit to where credit is due and really trying to show something that's cool, in a sense, at least for me, for my money, literally, I want to see something that Obi-Wan is doing in this meantime, rather than Boba Fett, who had all of about 3 lines of dialogue and, two couple scenes, between Empire and Jedi.
And that was killed like a bitch.
Yeah. You're ready to you're going to be ready to tear up your Star Wars fanboy membership card and in front of George Lucas. You're going to be like, man, I'm done.
Well, and that's the thing. I think it's more of just where these things would fall. I feel the same way as David, that I don't necessarily feel like I need to see a lot of these backstory movies, the exception being Obi-Wan. And I would make one other exception if they wanted to do the Jabba and the Mercenaries movie. I don't know, whatever it would be, but just seeing the more of the crime syndicate with Jabba and some of those aspects, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But
Especially
Other
after they
than that-
mentioned it in this film, getting
Yeah.
involved with the Hutt cartels, and that was like they were like, "Holy shit, you actually said that out loud." It was almost like talking about Voldemort. Like everybody like backed off. It was like, Jesus, she said that.
Yeah, so aside from that, I mean, I really don't feel the need to see more of the backstories of characters we're already familiar
Right.
with.
Yeah, like I would be all in if they instead announced like a Mandalorian film. Like we're gonna have a film that's based on Mandalorians or something,
But not Boba Fett
but not so much like
specifically.
Boba Fett specifically. That would be cool as shit to me. But of course, it's a company trying to make money. They've got a property. Boba Fett's a name.
They've gotta
like,
have names.
People for the most part know who Boba Fett is. They want to see a Boba Fett movie. They don't want to. Oh, who the Mandalorian? They don't even know that he is a Mandalorian. And,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. But
I'm with you.
That's where I stand on all that. But. All right. Yeah. I guess we should probably wrap things up.
It's getting late over here on the East Coast.
I guess. It's been fun though.
On a regular Sunday night, yes.
has
On
been.
Memorial Day weekend, not so much, but
Yeah. No, it's not too bad. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. So.
yay!
Yay! And yeah, we still have to record a review for Deadpool 2. So, anyone listening, if you're wondering why in the hell we have not talked about Deadpool 2 yet, I was out of town for a week for work. Just kind of screwed things up and made it so that didn't work out. But I've seen the movie. We've all seen
It's
it.
all you. It's all your fault.
It's all my fault, though. I fucked up Deadpool 2
but
as a review.
but it sounds like we're gonna have Yasha, and he loves Deadpool. So I'm looking forward to hearing his thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't heard what he thought of the movie.
I know.
don't
I have no idea, and I'm super excited because he freaking loves Deadpool. So it's gonna be good.
Yeah. So we're hoping to record a show later this week. If you're wondering why we have not discussed this major comic book film,
This huge film that dropped before Solo.
yeah, that would be why. But we're getting to it eventually.
happening.
And then, we don't really have a big kind of tentpole movie for a few weekends, do we? Like not till Jurassic Park
Nope.
or Jurassic World.
I think Jurassic World Fallen
Later in
Kingdom
June, right?
is
Wait, when is
No,
Jurassic World? Because I thought Incredibles 2 was
Incredibles 2
before
comes
that.
first, and then it's Jurassic World.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right.
And I do
yeah.
want to see next weekend. I do want to try and get to go see Upgrade.
I do want to see Upgrade.
Yeah, I remember watching
Yeah.
that trailer, and then I remember I said something, and you're like, "Actually, I kind of want to see that one."
It looks fun. I mean,
Does look
Yeah.
fun.
it's
Looks bloody
ridiculous.
as hell. Oh
But
god,
it's over the top ridiculous, and it looks awesome.
super over the top.
Um,
Side note: anybody seen the Ruth Nader Ginsburg
documentary,
documentary? It's getting spectacular reviews.
RGB.
Like, it is literally, it's just all the gossip. Blah, 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 blah.
No, I want to see it. It's playing at our house theater here in Orlando right now.
Yeah, we should go see it.
Yeah, we should go see that.
Anyways,
But yeah. Oh, and Hotel Artemis, I want to see that.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how I feel
yeah.
about it
I don't-
exactly.
yeah.
But it might be. You know what? It might come down to what the reviews say. If it seems like it's fun enough to go see, I might check it out, or I will check it out. If because otherwise it seems very close to John Wick. In a lot of.
I get
So
that.
I'm
Trust me,
like-
I had that first reaction too when I saw the trailer, but at the same time, I'm like, but it looks like a fun movie. It definitely looks like the kind of movie that looks like a good trailer, but then reviews come out and
Exactly.
it's like, 20% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well,
You know?
yeah, and the best parts might be in the trailer as opposed
Right.
to the rest of the
Right.
movie. So yeah, that's why I think I might have to wait a little bit just to see what the general thought is there.
And then Ocean's 8, like that's coming out the same weekend as Hotel Artemis, and
I have zero desire to see Ocean's 8.
my dad just asked me yesterday. A commercial came on, and they happened to be over and asked me what I thought of that. I'm like, I don't know. Like on its own, it could end up being a very good movie. Like, and that's how you have to look at it. I think I hate that they're making this connection to Ocean's 11, and I hate the whole like, let's take a property that was all males and let's just do the same thing but make it females. Like,
It bothers me. It feels very unoriginal.
yeah, like you can make really great female-driven films that are just original. Like,
Exactly.
you don't have to go, well, let's take Ghostbusters and make it with women now.
just
like,
Pisses me off when I see
Well-
that, honestly.
See, I will say, unlike you guys for this movie, for Ocean's 8, I do like the fact that unlike Ghostbusters and them just doing it just with women, this does have that connection that she's Danny's sister.
Right.
And so that it makes that familial connection to the fact that she shares the same name and she is a female. So she's probably wants to one up her brother or whatever the brother sister rivalry is there, that she's like, well, I can get a crew of women and we can do it better than you did, or whatever the case may be. But I feel like it feels a little bit more organic in this way, if you're going to do it this way, than to just sort of take that name and slap some women in there and be like, here we go, now this is that, but with this women or these women or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I see it both ways, I guess, but
nah, I'm okay.
I don't know.
But you know what? Father's Day weekend.
Oh, yeah,
Incredibles 2.
Man, you were crazy excited about that
I'm
movie.
stupid excited.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be. Please don't get me wrong.
Because I love The Incredibles.
I like The Incredibles too.
And I am excited for this film.
You're pumped.
I am pumped. And the downside of being pumped is I could get let down so easy. But
I don't think you will.
I am looking forward to Incredibles 2, Father's Day weekend, middle of June. Bring it.
And I will say, I don't know. I think, and you guys probably fall in the same boat. I don't know. I feel like most people do not have high hopes for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
I have zero hopes for that film.
In a way, I don't either. But in a way, I don't know. Like, I have a feeling like if it goes a certain direction, I think I'm down with it. And for me, I think that direction is, especially because the third movie's already been announced. Like, if you really do go down the road of like at the end of this, like dinosaurs are really like maybe taking over, and then you get a third movie where it's like survivalists, like having to survive a world with dinosaurs.
I'm super down with this plan.
Like, I'm all for that.
But I don't think that's what's going to happen.
The only reason I have hope that maybe it is purely on the title of this trilogy of movies, calling it Jurassic World. Like, part of me is like, maybe they're really going to do that. That would be crazy.
And that would be awesome. But right now, from what I've seen in the trailer, it feels very much like the second Jurassic World or Jurassic Park. It has a lot of that feeling to me. A dinosaur let loose in a major city. This one's going to be a created, genetically created one,
right.
Like really crafted one, which, is supposed to be the big bad. And I get that. And they're going to use the other dinosaurs to fight the big bad dinosaur that man really freaking created.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have high hopes. But I will say, if they let loose all the dinosaurs on different continents and it just starts going haywire, I'm actually pretty okay with that.
Yeah. Bobby, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I do have high hopes for it in the way that I have no hopes for it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that I go into these Jurassic Park movies and Jurassic World movies just looking to be entertained and have fun. I don't expect them to come out with some great narrative or to take any real kind of risk to the movies. They're just popcorn entertainment movies to me.
Right.
And the same way that I don't expect a Pacific Rim to elevate the genre in any sort of way. I don't look to Jurassic World to do that either. I just look to go see dinosaurs terrorizing people, and that typically is the most of what I need. And where it may fail me is how much it might stretch credibility and believability in what they're trying to tell within the story. And I think that kind of goes, and maybe we can talk about this some other time, but to the effect of a lot of people in these movies who watch these movies, I should say, want there to be some level of risk being taken in this world, in this genre. Like the people who say they loved Return of the Last Jedi because of the risk it took. And I'm still trying to shuffle through my feelings when it comes to, do I need Star Wars to take risks, or do I just want it to be very surface level fun? I don't know the answer to that still just yet. And my basic answer would be it's complicated. But I really think that when I see a Jurassic World movie, I just expect there to just be silly jokes and humor and dinosaurs, kind of tearing through whatever environment they're in, trying to get at people and be in the wild, and you sort of rinse and repeat. And the ability to make it a little fresh and newer each time is what makes it either the ability for it to be good or to be bad for me.
That makes sense.
It does.
I get that. All right. Yeah, we should wrap things up. Like I said, I think 15 minutes ago. Then I kept going.
Hey, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
It's all in good fun. It's all in good fun.
To everyone listening, we would love to hear back from you. We'd like to hear your thoughts on Solo. You can comment by emailing us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at @Flicker_effect. We're also on Instagram, Flicker Effect, on Facebook as Flicker Effect. So seek us out. Talk to us. We'd love to hear
join
from you.
the conversation.
We would also greatly appreciate if you enjoy the show, leaving us a review on iTunes. That helps us reach more listeners.
Yes.
So that would be greatly, 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 greatly appreciated. Please do that. Thank you. And you can find us on YouTube as well. All these podcasts, you can hear the audio on YouTube if that's your thing at youtube.com/Flicker Effect. I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.